What is the stupidest way you've ever ruined, destroyed an electronic device? I did something similar when I was a cashier, except I went to pick the jar up not realizing it was wet from condensation, so I dropped it. It only fell like an inch. Apparently that was too much because it just exploded. Somehow it did not kill the scanner. I am guessing they were sealed for this exact reason, but I did end up smelling vaguely like pickle juice for the rest of my shift even after I changed into my backup clothes from my car. Was nice to get to wear blue jeans instead of slacks though. As a child, virtual pets / Tamagotchis were all the rage and I loved them dearly. I had a beloved 12-in-1 that let you have a bunch of different pets instead of just one. Well, the screen was dirty and I wanted to clean it, so I ran it under tap water for like 5 minutes to make sure it got clean. Lo and behold, I learned the hard way water and electronics don't mix. Your story reminded me of the time I had a Tamagotchi too. I was so young at the time. I did not realize that when it passes you can simply press the reset button to start over and bring it back to life. When mine died, I buried it in my backyard under our swing set. My folks asked where my toy had gone and a few days had passed since I played with it. In that amount of time it had rained, and Tamagotchi was not salvageable. Lesson learned when it came to electronics. My dad did this to his favorite sunglasses that he got as a 10-year gift from his work. He was all riled up trying to find a bottle opener in the trunk, couldn't find it, slammed the trunk. He stopped in shock and all you could see was one lens and an arm sticking out at a wrong angle. It was silent for a little bit after that. The best part is he placed them down ever so gingerly, only for them to be violently taken from this world in an instant. I have a Nokia Windows 8 phone. It's now only a backup because of its age and non-existent upgrades. However, I still love the phone for a lot of reasons. One day, when I used it full-time, I dropped it in art class right on the cement floor. My classmates around me gasped and cringed thinking it was now a broke phone. However, when it hit the floor, it disassembled into its component parts. The front separated from the back and the battery popped out. The screen didn't even break when it hit the floor. This wasn't the first time I had dropped it, either. I laughed while I picked up the 3 pieces, reassembled it, and started it normally. It played its little Nokia tune. Like normal. The designers at Nokia, rather than have the front and back snap firmly together like phones made by other makes, the Nokia phone snapped together well enough to stay together in normal use, but when dropped, it could fall apart absorbing much of the force without breaking. I dropped my Samsung sometime later, and alas, my screen was cracked from the impact. When I was washing my sheets I had neglected to check to make sure I had my cell phone in my pocket, so I accidentally washed it and it was pooched. That wasn't my stupidest time. The stupidest time was washing my replacement a couple months later after vowing to check every time. Now if my cell isn't in sight, I don't turn on the machine. Back in the smallest phone arms race circa 2005 I was playing Tetris while taking a shit. I pocket the phone before cleaning the scene, but not deep enough. I flushed and pulled up my pants. My phone flew out of my pocket, bullseyed the hole and went down with the last glug from the flush. For context, I was at work, so it was one of those industrial flush public toilets. Ruined a $950 prototype circuit board at my job because I was in a rush, and didn't pay attention to which power supply on my bench I had grabbed, and I plugged 120 volts directly into it. Board immediately blew up, complete with sparks and smoke. I slammed my office door shut, and repeatedly called myself a fucking moron for about 10 minutes. Once I calmed down I went and talked to my boss. After a couple days we got another prototype sent out to us, and we proceeded with testing. That board is now framed and hangs on a wall above my computer screen with a note that says "The Center." Yes, I still work for the same company. I've seen something similar on a wall at a company I once visited. They had the things employees had destroyed by being stupid displayed with little plaques next to them describing the actions leading to the destruction. Each description also included any injuries to the employee, such as electric shock, burned eyebrows, or mortally wounded ego. Mainly mortally wounded egos, as I can remember. I did this to my computer monitor when I was younger. It left a big orange spot in the corner. I was showing my friend a game on the computer later and he asked what it was. I said I accidentally got the magnet, which was lying on my desk, too close to the screen. He goes, "You mean like this?" and swipes the magnet across the screen again. I shit you not, it went right back to normal. I've never gone from to faster. Well, this was not me, but I suffered the consequences. I used to work at an art center. We had all the tech stuff we needed: sound, video, PCs. One day I am at my desk and all of a sudden all the power went down at the same time. Unusual, I would say. We had recordings in one of our studio, a group was rehearsing the play that they were developing, and all the electricity failed. So, what happened? The boss's secretary, bored of not doing anything at the moment, decided to wash the walls with a hose, and watered the main electric board. So many things got destroyed: the light projectors, 2 PCs, 1 video projector, and all the 3 amplifiers we had in out backstage. Luckily we were insured against stupidity, otherwise, she would have been even more fucked. This isn't something that happened to me but happened to my brother. So my brother had just got his first phone and he was testing out the case for it. He would throw it up in the air and let it hit the ground. He threw it higher and higher each time. He eventually threw it as high as he could and it didn't break. He then told me to come and see how strong it was. He threw it as hard as it could at a brick wall and... yay. Well, he didn't ruin it, but ... One time I was trying to fix my kid's tablet and accidentally handed it back to him in parent mode, and he bought about $150 in Godzilla movies from Prime, and somehow managed to set the language to Portuguese and change the time zone and change his profile pic to a bug of some kind. That was weird. You know that scene in Taxi Driver where De Niro is rocking his TV set back and forth, seeing how far he can get it before it falls, then it falls and gets broken? I have done that exact same thing. I had to go downstairs and tell my dad what I'd done. I felt so stupid. In the mid-90s, I bought my mom a PC. She never had a computer before, so I was setting everything up before delivering it to her the next weekend. Step 1 was upgrading the RAM. Left the cover off for when I was going to install the modem and SCSI card for the scanner. One thing at a time. So you know what broke it when it stops working. You know, installed modem, tested internet, got thirsty, so I got a glass of orange juice, and proceeded to trip and dump the whole glass into the computer, yanked the power strip out of the outlet, cleaned up the mess, and the computer worked fine. I always fall asleep with one AirPod in. One night, I fell asleep with my hoodie on and then woke up the next morning and couldn't find the AirPod anywhere. I shook out my hoodie and nope, couldn't find it. Looked in the bed and nope. Few days later, I put the same hoodie on, go to sit down on the toilet, and my AirPod just flops in the toilet. Still works great. This was a good one. Back in high school, I was 17 I believe. I was in the electronics program at the local VOTAC school. This was about the time electric lighters came out, so of course my best friend and I tore one apart to see how it works. The part that clicks makes a static electrical shock, arc, and that is what ignites the fuel coming out of the lighter. You can also shock the crap out of people with it, just FYI. Anyway, we were suffering from the dumb that day and hooked it up to the industrial fluke rack-mounted multimeter to see how much juice we were playing with. For your educational purposes, static electricity, you know, like lightning, does not play well with electronics. We hooked that little clicker up, turned on the machine, and with one click ... fried it. While it didn't smoke, all the lights on the front were stuck on and the readout display read 8888 while twitching. We both said oh fuck ... then switched it out with one of the night class's multimeters, never got caught for that one. Got a phone that was called Craftman's phone. Was designed with rubber case, so it could withstand some hits in water. Well, I got a severe case of flu, and lay nauseated and vomiting in bed. For emergency, I had a bucket next to bed, if something crawls up from the stomach, and the phone on my side. Yes, I turned half asleep and heard a sploosh, took the phone out of the vomity water and left it to dry. It was fine. After 3 months, it stopped working. Opening the rubber case, a round of vomity water came out. Some Christmas when I must have been all of about 6-ish years old, my sister and I got some new LCD handheld games, not Tiger Electronics, level, several rungs below. I was so excited, because the one I got was so different to the boat and car. Get to the left for a flag, take it to the right for a point gameplay. My sister wanted to have a go with it. Obligingly, I handed it over. She dropped it and the sound busted, never to function again. That basically describes my young life. I'd get something special, one of my siblings would take it or coerce me to give it to them, and when I'd get it back, it was irreparably broken in some way, and my parents with the sucks to be you kid responses. I got a watch from a school fundraiser. I think I sold like $150 worth of stuff to get it. I was pumped because it was waterproof. Day one, I was pumped. I had been waiting for this thing for months. I take it out of the package, run it under the sink. The LCD screen faded from black to nothing as I noticed the graphics read water resistant. Was already having a bad day. Ended up throwing my iPhone at a wall because it took 10 seconds to open the camera and I missed the moment I wanted to capture. It was only 3-4 years old and so many of its functions were running at the speed of molasses. Screen didn't break but it popped open and the battery fell out. Got it fixed at a 3rd party repair shop but the home button fingerprint scanner never worked again. Some years ago I played Vanquish on my Xbox 360 and was really struggling with the final boss fight. I was not able to do any real progress on him and was fighting him for like 3 hours straight. I got so frustrated that I took my controller and smashed it many times into my couch to release some steam. The controller did not break, but my phone was lying on the couch and on my last attempt I hit the screen of my smartphone and smashed it completely. As I was a student back then, I got even more angrier as the game was still not beat and I had to buy a new phone. Since then no more smashing controllers on the couch or removing breakable items altogether before playing games. Edit. After the incident I left the game for almost 2 years. I fired it up 2 years later and after getting a feel for the controls again, I beat it after like 30 minutes. At last, good things come to those who wait. D. I did that with an HTC Touch Flow, a Windows phone from a dark and terrible era when people were figuring out smartphones. Having said that, I'm not going to take full responsibility. See, the problem was that it was held shut by a magnet and so tended to snap open the moment you applied enough pressure. The backstop, meanwhile, was an incredibly thin bumper and then the phone's bezel which was made out of very thin, very soft plastic. The first time it happened I figured it was my fault. The second time it happened, I started to suspect the phone might be the problem. The third time, after being as careful as was physically possible with the thing, it didn't quite fly apart as it had in the past. Instead, it simply lost almost all ability to receive a signal. Turns out the antenna runs through the same bit of the phone that I'd kept breaking, and so my reward for being very careful is that it broke before the plastic itself gave way. By then, though, the iPhone 3 had arrived and given that I'd reached the point where repair was out of the question, I just went with the same phone everyone else I knew had swapped to. I'd just returned from an overseas trip with a little leftover cash so I treated myself to a MacBook Pro and the latest iPhone. It's my first weekend back so I meet with some friends and we go out and get boozy. We drink too much, wake up the next day and I think I pissed the bed as my mattress is wet and so my underwear. Reach for my phone and discover it isn't turning on despite leaving the house the night before with a fully charged battery. I didn't think much of it. I go outside and my MacBook is on the table. When I pick it up water drains from the sides. My jeans and shirt are also saturated. hanging on the table. Thinking WTF is going on, I asked my brother if he has any idea what happened. He said I was so rickety-wrecked I'd passed out fully clothed on top of my bed, gotten up at some point in the night and taken my MacBook into the shower, fully clothed, iPhone in pocket. Almost 10 years ago now and I still hate myself. TL Doctor, I dropped $3,000 in a night by showering with my MacBook Pro and iPhone. I was drunk and bought a big cheeseburger from a kebab shop with loads of sauce. I ate half and decided to put the box in my bag to eat when I got home. At some point during the walk home I put my phone in my bag too. When I got home, I found the box on its side popped open and I had managed to push my phone inside the burger. It was covered in mayonnaise and lettuce. I cleaned it and took it to the shop the next day, but it was a lost cause. They took it apart and found congealed mayo and salad bits all over the circuits. They were cool though, gave me a new one for free on my insurance and put it down to water damage. When I was a kid I watched a magic show where someone put a sheet over something, I forget what it was, and when he pulled the sheet off it was gone. The next day, when I noticed both my parents were in the room, I decided to show off my own magic skills. I went and grabbed a blanket, threw it over the TV, and pulled the blanket off with a lot of force for a 4-year-old. The TV fell, almost on me, and the screen shattered. I was in a lot of trouble for that. Had an MP3 player in the pocket of my swimsuit while listening to it on the beach while on vacation. After a while I turned it off and started talking to my parents about something. About 20-30 minutes later I decided to get in the ocean to cool off before making the walk up to the condo for lunch and to get out of the heat for a while forgetting my MP3 player was still in my pocket. When I got up to the condo I realized what I did and dried it off. After 30-45 minutes I started messing with it, finding out it still worked. Now the stupid part of all of this was I did the exact same thing about 6 hours later, which ended up destroying it the second time around. Not ruined but still a funny story. Was working in a small shop in UK. Went to get something out of the day safe. The safe was basically a solid steel door bolted onto the stone wall in the staff toilet. Very small shop obviously. Had one of those old Ericsson phones with the built-in belt clip and wore it on back of my belt where it wouldn't get knocked. Turned around in the cramped space and caught my phone on the door of the safe. The phone literally flipped over my head in a beautifully described double somersault and went straight into the toilet bowl without touching the sides. Splashed down. Luckily the toilet hadn't been used recently. I fished out the phone, took it apart, battery, back SIM card etc. all removable in those days, and carefully dried it in an airing cupboard over 3 days. Put it back together and it worked fine. Lol. Different times. Not really ruined as much as lost, but when I was a young teenager I had a very large collection of GBC, DS games that I had accumulated since I was a small kid. I went on a vacation to the beach with my family and my grandma had bought me a GameCube and Shadow the Hedgehog as a present. As we were about to leave and take the 14-hour drive home I hooked the GameCube to a mini TV my parents had gotten for the back of their seat and played for probably 4 hours straight. I then realized I had left my entire bag of games on the hotel bag holder. Sadly by the time we called the hotel it was long gone. Over a decade later it still hurts to think about. Probably lost 80+ games from my childhood. Learned that day to keep a close eye on my electronics. Now I used to play on my laptop in the bathtub. I had a stand for it and was very careful not to get water in it. Well, one day, I pulled the plug in the tub, set the laptop open because my game was playing on the toilet, moved the stand and got out. When I started drying off, my knee hit the laptop and knocked it off the toilet lid. I reached a foot out to try to stop it from hitting the floor too hard, but it bounced off my leg and slid directly into the draining bathtub that still had 6 inches of water. I took one look and said nope, waited till the water drained to pull it out and throw it away. It was an old laptop by then already, and my school had just given us laptops for class, so it wasn't a huge loss. Just couldn't play my games on the school laptop due to the parental controls. I think I got an Xbox that Christmas anyway, so I only spent a few months without games. Nowadays I use my waterproof phone for reading and playing games in the bath.